Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Mixed Extents, the end of year review with myself, Andrew Prosky, and my co-hosts, Mark Wilkerson and Anthony Nocentino. Welcome, chaps. How you doing? You can say hello or what? You know, you have to say hello because otherwise you don't go on the camera. Remember, we've done this a few times.
Hello.
Yay, there we go.
This is not a webinar.
Yes, we're not calling it a webinar like last time, Anthony.
Did I call it a webinar?
No, Anthony called it a webinar last
Right,
time.
okay,
Yeah, I
fine.
did.
All right. Fine. Okay, it's a podcast.
Yeah.
It's the end of year review. We've got a host of great guests to join us. We've got Blythe Morrow of Group Buy. We've got William Durkin of New Stars of Data. We've got Mark Hayes of
Data Weekender.
Thank you. Stuart Moore of Data Platform Discovery Day. And Kevin Feasel of Data Architecture Day. And I knew I wasn't going to get through that without
You
spilling
had
over,
one
but
job.
I know, and I suck. But anyway, welcome everyone, and we're here to talk about all the different events that have been going on this year because we've got all organized from all different events, all hitting different kinds of demographics. So, really glad you could all join us. And so we're going to start off with, let's start off with a really basic question of like, we've all put on events this year. What's been the biggest surprise of the year that is the actual horrible pile that's been 2020?
For anybody.
I can go first if you.
Yes,
Hi,
of
I'm
course,
Blythe.
yeah.
So Group Buy, when we took over Group Buy from Brent Ozar a couple of years ago, you know, we just kind of kept on keeping on. We really copied the same model. We made some changes, but it was a lot of the same. I think this year, especially when it first hit and all of the physical conferences were essentially canceled, and then the little virtual events started popping up, the Group Buy committee, we were very uneasy about it because we were the virtual conference in the data platform community and we were still rebuilding. We were a little worried.
Like little virtual events, everyone. Little virtual.
Little. Well, you feel that way. You feel that way, right? I mean, a couple thousand people. It's not this massively huge thing. And we were still trying to figure out what we wanted it to be when it grew up. And then these little other little virtual events started popping up, and rightfully so. It made sense to us. But what did that mean for Group Buy? And I think what surprised us when we ran the first event was how the concept of high tides rise all boats is totally true, because we saw more attendance and more engagement than we ever have. And we saw it across all of the events, right? So there was this participation, I think, and this drive to want to create something worth sustaining, but then it kind of multiplied 8 or 9 times. We saw a huge amount of engagement, more than we ever had, and then we watched all of your events do the same. And it was, you know, we had no idea what was going to happen. It was a really pleasant surprise. So
absolutely, we were blown away. We put on EightKB earlier in the year thinking it was going to be a small little conference for people who just wanted the SQL Server internals. And then when we blew past 2,000 registrations, we were all sitting there going, okay, we might need to
got
bring
something.
Ours. Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone here is like, we went with the like hardcore SQL Server internal stuff, but the different conferences that are out there are focused on different things, which I really like because it's kind of something for everyone, you know.
That's it, because we purposely went for level 100 topics. We wanted to give the people who are just starting out with the data platform a way of getting in. You know, actually, you know, this is what your first Power BI report will look like. This is, you know, the first thing you need to do. Quite often conferences assume you're level 200 and above. So, you know, we found that worked really well a lot. I know I didn't do an introduction. Sorry, I'm Stuart. I helped organise Data Platform Discovery Day and also run Data Relay when it's a physical conference, which may not be for a while. But yeah, we wanted to give people a way of getting in.
Well, the problem with Data Relay is, if anyone doesn't know, I also help organise Data Relay. It's literally a relay around the UK where we drive to different cities. And during COVID, that was probably the worst idea we could possibly do. So it was cancelled this year.
The perfect definition of a super spreader event would be us lot going around the country for a week.
Yeah.
But yeah, finding that niche was the best thing. We got a lot of people in who'd never been to any form of data platform event before. And certainly I know from tossing it around at work, we got a lot of people who you wouldn't really have considered for those sort of events. They just turned up because they thought they might learn a new skill they can use 6 months in the future. So we thought it was great.
Well, Stuart, I think we need to rebrand that event to SQL Super Spreader Day. Just think about it. Think about it. You know, so relevant, so trendy.
Yes. However, I don't think we'd get many venues booking us in. And having a refund for a number of them this year, we'd got everything booked. And then this came along. And we initially moved out the way for SQL bits to move. And then by the time that wasn't happening, we weren't going anywhere. So.
I reckon, like, speaking in from the data weekender point of view, you know, the surprise in there was actually it actually worked to begin with, right? Because in our case, we kind of decided, let's put something together and let's do it really, really quickly. I mean, one of the organizers saying, can we do this in 2 weeks' time? And it was actually a negotiation to kind of go, how about we go for 4 weeks' time, all right? And I think we ended up with 3 weeks in the middle, all right? But the fact that comparing it to, say, a SQL Saturday events that I'd run in the past, I mean, you're running something on 1% of the budget that got twice the numbers of people going along to it in a far shorter period of time of engagement. I mean, it was a chalk and cheese situation. And frankly, would make me wonder, would I ever try to organize an in-person event again? Because it just felt a hell of a lot easier to do it that way almost, you know? It just fell together, which surprised me, but it was great to see, you know?
No lugging around pop-up banners for you there, Mark?
No lugging around pop-up banners and swag bags. No swag bags. Cut the crap. You know, cut all this kind of, you know, you have to do these things because it's a conference. You have to have pen and paper going around there and there. You actually don't need any of that. All you need are decent speakers and people will turn up to see them. You know, so online works. I know from a speaker point of view, we do like to meet up. We like to have a chat. We like to have a few beers. Undoubtedly, we're looking forward to kind of going back to actually meeting up and networking. But let's face it, the convenience of the virtual side of things is amazing as well. You know, I can walk out and go into my, you know, do the long walk to my living room, which is like 5 feet away, you know, and that's awesome too. So I think there's a role for both in there. And I think that's maybe being a learning that you can have virtual events. They can work, they will work, and people will go to them.
I'm curious what experience you guys had with sponsors, because I mean, what you're describing right now really leaves out a key component of our community, like a key component that helped really make SQL Family what it is. The sponsors that hire technical evangelists and have people on their teams that exist to build up the marketing or the SQL community. Like they're a huge component, and they've been essentially left out of our group. Has anybody had any success? Or sorry, Mark, I'm switching subjects, but I worry about the sponsors because they're really good. They're a big deal. So.
Well, we've had a few people approach us about sponsorship. And the thing is, if you're running a profit for non-profit, right? You kind of don't need the money.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So you can kind of go, respectfully, we don't actually need you at this time in there, you know? So it's more almost managing the relationship with them that, you know, you kind of want to keep them on board for the in-person ones, which are expensive to run, which we need them in there. But I think you do raise up the point of kind of going, maybe there's something that should be done, that if this continued on and on and on and became normal, all right, as in totally normal, then yeah, you'd want that to be reaching out to those sponsors, because to them, it's an avenue. To them, it's an avenue to chat to people. It's an avenue for them to get clients on board, or just to maintain that community reach in there. And I guess, yeah, we shouldn't be ignoring it per se, but it becomes an interesting fit, because you don't want to take the money just for the profit side of things either, you know? So I think the question will be, how would you actually use it to grow the event in an online manner, you know, and not just pay for teas and coffees?
That's 100% what we thought with EightKB. We went with no sponsors because the costs it was a Zoom license and hosting a website. So we had a few sponsors approach us and we're like, well, you know, we don't really need the cash. We ended up selling T-shirts, and that covered all of our bases, you know. And they're lovely, and they are available. They'll be in the show notes. Oh yes, Mark, you got some editing to do. The link is here. Thank you.
We had a single sponsor, Redgate, and that was purely because they offered us their teleconferencing system for the day.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That was the pure limit of the sponsorship. Was that Matt, the co-organizer, knows Grant well. So when we were looking for a platform, we just we use Redgate's conferencing system.
I have to wonder
So-
too.
I don't know
how
if
much
one way for sponsors to come through is much like we do at Relay, have prizes to encourage people to come along if they want to get their name mentioned. Donate a nice prize or something. People may want, especially put some streaming kit up.
That Star Wars drone last year really got everyone.
Oh yeah, I think that one got the most sponsorship engagement from anyone across the week. You gave them your details, you were put in the draw, and it was a nice Star Wars drone. Everyone wants one. The minute do it with a nice microphone or streaming camera.
Yep.
Certainly sponsors to get their numbers back on the cost of that.
So I have to wonder too if it has something to do, like for us, for me personally, I guess, if I'm looking for a sponsor for an event, I want them to be kind of relevant to the event,
Yeah.
And with more like niche events like 8KB, it was for internals. I would be hard pressed to find a vendor that I feel would be relevant for like an internals event, And I don't know how that applies to everyone else, but
I have a bit of a, I guess being a SQL marketing person, I tend to think more in terms of sponsorship, and we've been having a lot of conversations about it at Group Buy because there are a lot of folks in our SQL in our community that they're creating businesses. They're under $1 million in revenue. They've been in business for maybe 1 or 2 years. They have great ideas. They're building really cool things. And if we think about, SQL Century in 2008, when they came out, they came out with Plan Explorer, and they created this huge successful company as a result of the community coming together and supporting them, right? And putting them in front and like allowing them to be in front of their members and partnering with them. And I think that we can really have more success stories if we allow more sponsorship. And yeah, that might mean that we might make a little money, but I don't really see the problem with that. So I'm always really curious about what everyone thinks. Sounds like I'm kind of the odd person out.
No,
William, maybe you think, maybe you're with me.
It's a weird one because as Mark already said, if you don't have many costs, you almost feel bad saying to a sponsor, "You're going to pay me to be a sponsor." Something that Stuart mentioned already, Redgate, they helped us. I'm the co-organizer of New Stars of Data. It's an event for new speakers who've never spoken at a big event before, and we're promoting them, trying to get some new speakers into the whole community. And Redgate just stepped up and said, use our conferencing system. We've got something, I can't remember the name of it. It's not Zoom, it's not Teams, it's something else.
Is it on 24?
I think it's on 24.
That's what they're, yeah.
And that immediately just takes away any issues on our side, right? Otherwise, we've got a Twitter account and a WordPress site. So for like $50 a year or something, we've got the infrastructure covered. It's not a problem. At the same time, Blythe, you're completely right. What is wrong in an event saying, okay, we're still going to charge you if you've got an event where there's 3,000 people or 2,000 people? What did you say it was for 8KB? Was it 2,000 people?
2,000, yeah.
It's completely okay to say you have a captive audience, which is of course, it's a niche thing. This is the internals of SQL Server, but still, there is definitely, you've already said so, there's companies reaching out to you to sponsor. And they need to hit these niches, and it's completely okay to accept that money. You're not going to be rich, right? That we're not talking of tens of thousands of dollars or something, but still, it's okay to take some money from these sponsors because they're reaching a very specific audience. For them, it's worth the money, right? They can't get that sort of targeting on Facebook or on LinkedIn or anything like that, right? They're hitting a very specific audience. And yes, Blythe is right. My business mind is speaking here, right? This is certainly a point where you shouldn't say no to a sponsor just because you think, well, I'm selling out. Yeah, you're selling out. You've got things to cover. You've got costs to cover. You've got things to think about. For us, we already have the infrastructure, but maybe you want to do something just a little too far beyond a personal budget. So selling T-shirts, okay, that's fine, right? But if all of a sudden you had $5,000 or $10,000 in the bank, you could do something really crazy, right? You could like really crazy, who knows what, but you could do something, you could try something that nobody's tried before. And it's free money in that respect because you've got no obligation beyond helping a sponsor to achieve their, to talk to their market.
My
One thing
kind of
that, though,
twist on
is-
that is, sorry, Stu, you go.
Like I said, the only problem is having spent this morning going through some of the last year's budget for Relay, once you've got a large amount of cash, there is a lot of overhead in running that. And I think most of us would say that one of the things we've had this year is this stuff. So data platform discovery, Matt made a random tweet, I responded, and 4 weeks later we're running the event. You know, if we'd have taken cash in, we'd have had to have a structure, you know, him being in the States, me being in the UK, the tax would have been over. I think that is one thing that sort of certainly stops me wanting to, you know, get too much cash in, because then it's just paying to run.
That, for sure.
You know, so it's a good thing, you know, if we're all in the UK doing it, that'd be easy to set up a small company and do it.
Yeah.
Well, let's bring
Kevin
Kevin in, because Kevin's done both in-person conferences and did his virtual conference this year. So, Kevin, did you have sponsors for your online conference this year?
No, we did not. So the online conference, Data Architecture Day, was brought by the Triangle Area SQL Server Users Group. Basically, I already had all the equipment. I already actually was simulcasting online before the whole world shut down. And we just decided, you know what? I have far too many weekends at home now. I need to do something with my time because I'm not traveling anywhere right now. So all right, let's put on a conference. It was no sponsorship. We haven't had sponsorship for the user group in years. And had somebody reached out for sponsorship, probably would have said okay, would have tried to talk details. Something I've noticed, though, is that for the major conferences, I've presented at several fairly big conferences over the past few months where they have had sponsors. Engagement seems like it's a lot harder to do online than it is in person. You don't have the chance to have a conversation with a person at a booth, see the product, talk to them about the product. Sometimes I see some of the back channel stuff about how difficult it is to just make that connection at all. And I can see methods of sponsorship that can work, sort of the advertising approach of, hey, let's have, here's an advertisement for sponsor A between sessions or at the beginning of a session. But the booth style engagement, I don't know that I've seen a virtual conference yet do it really well.
So I was part of Data Platform Summit.
Yeah.
Just last week.
Mm-hmm.
Very recently. They had, in my opinion, this year, the best virtual conference presence online of any of the conferences. Admittedly, I've not been involved in very many online conferences as a speaker or organizer or anything like that, but there was at least some semblance of like a lobby and a speaker's corner and a booth area and these sorts of things. There was a structure that at least tried to mimic an in-person conference. And of course, you can never get the same engagement because it's an online conference, right? People will jump in, see their session and disappear again. But just the ability there for them to have some sort of an interaction was far beyond anything else that I've seen before. They did a really good job, in my opinion.
Better than, did you go to PASS? Did you go to the PASS Summit?
I wasn't involved in that.
So we're going to pivot towards another direction. Sorry, Kevin. Another direction.
We're going to pivot organically.
You know, let's throw up the interstitial page. So let's say this. So we've talked about who we are. We kind of described our events a little bit, each of us. What was the main motivation behind starting your event, either this year or in Blythe, in your case, when you guys took over Group I? Like why now? Like what was the main motivation for doing what you did, especially in the context of this year? But Blythe, you're gonna maybe last year or the year before. So
pretty sure
I'll open it up to anybody.
That one.
Yeah, I think Kevin already answered it with no. It's like as speakers, we're always used to, like, you know, every other weekend. I think for the last 2 years, I've been hopping here and hopping there, traveling all around Europe and the States as well. So it's just like I have all this free time. I need to do
Needs-
something.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, I think for us though, as AKB, we felt that there was a gap in the major market events for the deep dive content. Because let's be serious, I've done 400 and 500 level talks at a SQL Saturday, and you get 4 people in the room, right? And so I think, like for us, it kind of jives really well with the virtual event because we can get that audience, the larger audience, without having to actually put someone in a room. And so that was, I think, one of the main motivations for us. So what about the rest of y'all?
I kind of came to Group by circuitously. I applied to join the PASS board, and I had just had a baby at the time. I had a 6-month-old, and I stopped sleeping, and then was diagnosed with postpartum anxiety, and pretty severely. And so at that time, I had to rescind my application for the PASS board, which is probably, I was very upset. I had to do that at the time, but priorities, right? You can't do everything and be everything to everyone as a new mother. So I rescinded my application, thank God. And
hindsight's wonderful.
yeah. And that was the year that I think there were just as many applications as there were board slots. It was one of those years. So I would have just kind of rolled onto the board. And I reached out to Brent and I said, I want to do something, but I can't. I just used to work for PASS. So I know that a lot of how much energy you need to have as a board person to deal with that. And he said, why join PASS? Why don't you just do something? Just do it. And then he offered me Group By and me and Daniel Hutmacher and Eugene. And so I was like, let's do it. And we're a marketing agency. We have marketing resources. I have a senior coordinator, Jeremy, who runs the whole thing. Really, I take the credit and he does all the coordination. And I just kind of folded it into the agency and it worked. And since then, it's crazy. Like 40% of our total revenue for PaperSword comes from the data platform community. So it's grown exponentially since I took it over. It's just like some fun thing that we do, and it ended up really working for my business. So I think we're on our 3rd year doing it. This will be our this one in May will be the 3rd year, our 5th event. It's cool.
Pretty cool. Now, Group By is a great speaker selection process as well. The community rates the session selected. I don't think anyone else does that. I think that's a really, really nice way because then you get the.
Bits is a vote, doesn't it? Bits is a vote.
Bits does that as well. Yeah.
Yep. Well, that's.
But it's good, and it's good, and it's kind of not good, and we're playing with the format of it because we found this last SQL bits, all of the votes, like if you had a name that started with A to E, you pretty much got a spot.
Oh, and so don't tell me that. My name's no.
And so we were just like, well, somebody we didn't even notice. Like we were so busy coordinating the event, and someone tweeted us. Oh, I wish I can remember who it was, and was like, have you noticed that all your speakers, their names are like in the beginning of the alphabet? And I'm like, oh, you guys. If you're going to vote, don't be lazy about it. Damn it. So now we have to, so we're constantly changing that voting process to be more fair, truly. Like we've changed platforms 3 times and we've like, and then, I think one year we had 75 or like an unbelievably large number of, it was 100 and was more than the PASS summit. At one point, it was so many sessions. Like, how do you choose? How do you vote? How do you just like look at that and not be completely overwhelmed? And then how do we encourage new
selection
speakers?
Is probably one of the hardest things that I think as conference organizers, it really sucks because at some point you're gonna have to reject an awesome session. And I mean, most speakers are, and I say most. They're quite fine with it. They're like, I'm putting it in. If I get selected, great. If I don't, they're not. But it's always that. We had 77 or 70 around that for EightKB, and we had 5 slots.
Yeah, you were going down to 5. That's tough.
Well, and we had even kind of seeked a couple people out and asked them to submit, and then
But the
That,
cooler,
yeah.
the coolest thing happened though when we each we all the sessions came in and we each independently went and picked our top 5 or 7, I think it was, and then we all got back together. And out of those 3 different sets, there was only one session that was we didn't all agree on. Like, we
Yeah.
pretty much like all saw it exactly how we wanted to see it. And then the second one was a little tougher, the one that we're doing in January, just because I think there was just different content, I guess you could say, available than it was in the first time. It was a lot more clear the first time around.
The whole speaker selection thing is very interesting, though, right? Because I think there's ways you could try to make it easier. And I think in the next Data Weekender, I'd be suggesting, all right, let's limit the number of submissions that can kind of come in. Now, that's probably a double-edged sword, because sometimes it's nice to have the choice. But on the other hand, you do see some speakers with like 10 sessions, all right? And then there's another guy with 1 session, and you're kind of going, that's a little bit of a biased thing going on there, just in the whole, when you're scanning, you're seeing so many different options in there. But what we wanted to try to do then, though, is also to factor in the diversity side, the experience side, the alternative tech side. It doesn't have to just be about SQL, and then the work lifestyle balance, mental health side in there as well. You know, so when you start trying to spin all of those things around, you do end up making some really tough calls. And say no to people who might be MVPs, who might be double MVPs, you know, and you kind of go, I'm sorry, dude, but, you know, you're losing out because there's someone else who deserves that slot in there, you know. And I think if you're trying to do all public voting in there, I love the idea of public voting in there, but there's kind of a case of, are you falling into that bias then of the most popular names will get spotted and picked? And there's this whole second layer of people who might be just delighted to do 1 or 2 conferences a year, all right? But they're up in competition against people who submit into every single conference, especially in a virtual world as well, right? Because, you know, I'm not going to submit into most American conferences because I'm not going to go traveling over to America to see a conference. But if it's online, hell, I'll throw my name in the hat as well, you know?
Yeah.
So,
well, and that, I mean, you brought up the diversity concept there, and that's really important to me. We had 12% women and people of color submit sessions for the last group buy. I spent almost an entire day reaching out to every single, like, individually asking people to submit, because I just really want to see more people of color and more diversity in group buy. That representation is critical. We did our inclusion policy this year as well, so that there's a sense of psychological safety at the event, in case that was one of the reasons. And then we still had 12% in spite of all of that work. And so we're not going to stop it. We've been working with Andy Mellon, came on a number of our committee calls and helped us craft that message and keynoted the event this year. And if you haven't watched Andy's session on diversity in the SQL family, you absolutely should. It's so good. But I honestly don't know what else to do. Active recruiting.
It's tough.
You know,
we got 35% on Weekender, which I was delighted with, you know. But you have to be honest, and we are honest about it. It's up in our website about it, okay, saying like, this does mean that, and, you know, there's one woman on this session in here, and all the rest are white male faces, right?
Yeah.
That's the ratio, all right? And actually, it kind of sucks in a sense, when you almost have to tell people who are really good speakers, kind of going, I'm going to actually bias against you, dude, because I got to try to build the other side going on there, you know? But I think most people get that, and anyone who doesn't get that, you don't want them speaking anyway, right? I think most people get that. It's just good. You have to go through it. But yeah, you do have to reach out. I think you just have to be open. We were open about it on Twitter. We just put out the call going, we're not getting enough diversity. Can people please help us out there? And to be fair, people spread the word and got people in, and it grew that way, you know. You just got to be honest, I guess, you know.
I agree.
Okay, that's
I
shot
absolutely.
every,
Well, no, I agree.
I'm thinking right now.
The speaker mentorship program this year, it was brand new. We started small, just for the new speakers, just to help them get them in front of some super senior folks, and help them deliver the best session they can. And we actively try to use our mentors as a recruitment vehicle for women and people of color, and that it just kind of started. And because I only know a certain subset of folks, and so the more people you ask, the larger that network becomes. I'm totally open to any ideas of how to grow that. New stars of data. Do you have any?
Well, I was going to say the speaker.
Yeah, this is like right up your
mentorship
alley.
thing also is one of the first conferences I saw do speaker mentorship was Data Grilling as well, which again William organizes.
Well, yeah, I'll toot my own horn here and pat myself on my own shoulder. We did push this as a whole thing. So obviously not the first conference in history, but certainly in the SQL community, I don't know there was anybody who had a track just for new speakers, which is what we did with Data Grilling, and then turned it into New Stars of Data, which is then the online only for new speakers event. And we're very much trying to be as diverse as possible. And magically, I seriously have no idea how, because we're not like, I can't recall us being extremely explicit about this whole fact, but we have an extremely diverse set of people who are submitting sessions, which is fantastic.
That's great.
But also making sure that we have, I mean, at the moment, we have the call for speakers for New Stars of Data. So anybody listening to this before the end of this week, so before the 20th of December, if you're thinking about maybe submitting to be a speaker for an event, newstarsofdata.com, you'll find the details. We currently have something ridiculous like 60 or 70 people who want to be mentors. And we currently have something around about 30 people who've submitted as new speakers. So we've got more mentors than we have speakers, which is always good. And we just, the whole point is we're trying to strengthen everybody's network and get everybody involved that we can. So
hang on now, we didn't say we allowed any self-promotion on this podcast.
Yeah. I was just thinking the pressure's on now. I've got to get this episode released before the 20th.
Yeah, definitely the pressure is on. So yeah, complete blatant self-promotion here, but New Stars of Data has been fantastic. The two events, two events so far, right? One or two? Two. Can't even remember.
What is time?
Oh my God.
Who's he talking
It's time, right?
You've
actually,
had one event.
It was one event, and all of the speakers of the first event were that good. It was like, what the hell is going on here? How are these people new speakers who've never done this before? Like there was 0 people on the roster who were somehow, well, I'm guessing they were all nervous, but they didn't show it. They just destroyed it from the very first minute to the end. It was like, what is going on here? Crazy. So there's so many hidden, absolute epic people out there. It's like, come to the front. We have a stage. We want you to succeed. We're here to help you. And we just need to keep doing that.
Agreed.
End of advertisement.
I'm wearing my New Stars of Data shirt. I don't know. I mean, I know this. I don't think you're going to have the recording, but I have stars all over my shirt.
Dude.
All right, so I'll throw another one out there. So Blythe, you kind of talked about this before we started recording today, everybody. So what are your thoughts about taking your conferences that you all have built into in-person conferences at some time in the future when it's safe? Has that even been in your universe of thought?
For me,
No.
Everyone's like,
I already have an
no.
in-person conference. Yeah, already have an in-person conference to go back to. And again, some of these I don't think would work as an in-person one. Offering a very beginner-centric day, we'd probably not encourage people to travel to an in-person conference. So
Well,
you'd have to
I like
have quite a
Blythe
small
because
event.
EightKB wouldn't work in person either. But I like Blythe's idea before we started recording of we all get together and put on one big conference with EightKB and New Stars Data and Data Weekend. Or
Everybody
Data
gets a day.
Like, can we make it? Can we make it
Tracks,
someplace
right?
warm? Like,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like North Carolina. That
Spain.
sounds
Yes.
great,
No.
Andrew.
Spain.
So I'm just gonna strike North Carolina off the list.
South
Too
Carolina
hot.
it is. All right.
In
so-
August.
In August.
No, Italy.
So I am not okay with not having an opportunity to get together. We know the Data Grillin will happen in Europe, and I think because it's Data Grillin.
So it's
it'll
going to
always-
happen. It's just
it's
not
gonna
next
happen.
year. Just not
no,
next year.
No, 2022 I think is
Yep.
more realistic.
Yep.
I don't believe in the concept of paying $2,400 for a conference, for a SQL Server conference. I think that's crazy. But running events is not my niche. It's not what I'm good at, and it's actually the opposite of what I love in terms of marketing and PR and sales, etc. But that event really solidifies and creates a space for the core community leaders in the data platform world to actually come together and build their relationships in a real way. And then out of that, we get all of the periphery events. We really do, because the core believes in it. And we have a core of, 1,000 folks maybe worldwide. And so I think there's value in continuing an in-person event. And I think the folks who are leading the community right now in their own little bubbles, in their own little world, are likely going to have to step up and do something. So I'm not against it. I just,
You don't want to do it.
I don't love the idea of everyone looking at me being like, okay, if you coordinate it, we'll come. I'm like, oh God, I don't coordinate it.
My
You build
thought
it,
is
they
that
will come.
A lot of the conferences that we've put together this year are niche conferences. They are because, well, normally I would get 4 people who are interested in this, like Anthony was saying, but I can go online and I can get 4 people from here and 4 people from there, and it adds up.
Yeah.
You do that in person, you're not going to get all those people. Even if you specifically make this internal centric, extremely heavy, all right, you might get 100 people, maybe. Even that could be difficult to get. When I say, nope, I wouldn't do Data Architecture Day as an in-person conference, I'll still do a SQL Saturday Raleigh. I'll still help put together things. I'll still be traveling around. I would love to see many of the conferences that were there that are more general focused, that will hit a broad range of people, just like limited to in the geographical area. I think that in-person type of event still has a lot of traction. It's the real niche where I'm hitting a small subset within a geographical area that I don't see holding it up well enough.
Well, I'm going to go the other way and say that 8KB Live will definitely be happening in 2022, and it definitely will be in Oahu. So come and join us, everyone.
Oh my goodness,
Make it Maui,
I'm
I'm okay with
down.
that.
That's when we'll need the sponsors.
Yeah.
There's a couple of my fellow organizers and Data Weekender have mentioned will we try to do something in person, and I generally write them off as madmen and ignore their opinion at that point, all right? But I think the thing is, we've set up events online which automatically are international because that's what happens online, all right? People from New Zealand pop in, people from America, people from Europe, all right? The minute you bring it to one place, you've killed that, all right? So now you got a big challenge, all right? You got to make your event worthy to get that same kind of audience going into it, all right? And that's a big ask, especially when you're going to have the likes of SQL Bit, say in Europe, will be considered the big European one, right? I mean, it's one of the world big ones, but in European context, that's the one you know about. So how would you replicate that? I guess you could. You'd have to go to a populous area. So would I try to do one in Cork? No. Would I try to do one in Dublin? Possibly not. Maybe try to do it in Amsterdam if you wanted to try to replicate something like that in there, and then try to build it. But now you're going to roll back to your sponsor question of I got to get the money on now because I'm going to be committing to a venue that I'm going to be, getting X amount of people in. And you raise the bar in a lot of different ways. And it was nice that we didn't have to deal with sponsors. Sorry to harp back to it, but it was kind of nice that we had to deal with it because you took away a whole admin area, all right? Now you bring that whole admin area back into it and you increase the risk factors to go there. I think it's a big ask. I wouldn't say it wouldn't happen, but I think it would be challenged.
There has to be another SQL Saturday Cork again, because everyone's the last 2 times I've been to SQL Saturday Cork, it has been scorchingly hot weather for some random reason. It's been, was it in the 30s last time? We were sitting there absolutely going,
oh yeah.
You get these Americans coming over and going, wow, Cork is lovely.
What? Cork is lovely. That is why it happened.
I meant the weather.
So actually, sponsors is another really valid point where if I say, all right, I'm going to have this conference that's dedicated to some extremely specific topic, sponsors, unless that's their wheelhouse, I could see them saying, I don't know, how many people did you say was going to be here again? Have you ever done this one before? Oh, I have no idea. It might be 30, 40 people. Well, it could be 700, I guess, but probably not. Versus, okay, I know, again, with SQL Saturdays, all right, we've done this several years. Here's the range of people. I can get a feeling. This is about the level of affinity for data platform conferences in this area. And even if you launch something new, all right, I can get a rough estimation. But when you're talking something that's quite niche from a sponsor standpoint, I don't know if that ROI is going to be there.
So I think there's going to be whoever manages to time it perfectly to have an in-person event right after all of this lockdown bullshit disappears. They're going to make an absolute killing. They're going to be overrun with geeks who've been stuck at home in their basements doing Zoom calls for 18 months. They're just going to have to do it. And whichever hotel and whichever conference center manages it, they've won it.
You're the one with the good beer, so we're coming to you.
No. I realize this, right? Grillin 2022, that's going to be, the thing is though, our event, we don't allow to grow, right? We've hit a limit on the number of people that can attend, and we will not grow beyond that because it's no longer just a Grillin, right? So we don't have a problem. Our event has a limited budget. We can, if we get more sponsors than usual, then we can just buy more beer and more sausages, right? That's fine. But like something like the past summit or a big SQL Saturday or something like that, if they can manage to, if the stars align and they get it at the right time, there's so many people wanting to meet each other and blow off steam and finally be normal again. It's gonna be, I think there will be, just like there was too many online events, because that's another thing I wanted to mention already today, that I have online event fatigue. I'm like, after this call, this podcast thing, I'm not doing anything. And for next year, I've got nothing planned. And I don't think I'll do much, if anything.
Well, so much for the follow-up in January. Thanks very much, William.
Well, we can, I will happily reject that invitation. But as soon as like in-person events begin again, it's going to be the same thing. It will be a huge wave of lots and lots of events, and everybody will go everywhere. And then they will have either run out of vacation days, run out of money to go to events, or just run out of energy to go to them all. So there's going to be a huge peak, and it will go down again. And again, and because this online stuff has become so popular and successful, to be honest, like these events are really good. EightKB, Group Buy, they're like successful as an event in its own right. They'll remain that way afterwards because there'll be the swing of I want to go to Spain, so I will see if there's a SQL Saturday that fits, and I'll go there. Oh, but there's something in New Zealand, I can't do that. Let's do it online instead. There's going to be a healthy mix of everything afterwards, but it'll swing back the other way. I think everyone will go to in-person events and ignore online for 6 months, and then it'll swing back again to the middle somehow.
You mentioned Madrid there. Me, Mark, and Kevin all work for the same company, who have an office in Madrid. So every time I see SQL Server Madrid roll around, it's like, come on, give me an excuse. Give me an excuse to go.
I think William, you brought up a good point about. I think it was William. I want to talk about.
If it's a good point, if it's a good point, I can.
It is a good point. It's a good point. I'm going to attribute it to William because you were just talking. So
yeah,
I want to talk about content because I'm curious about. We've seen a lot of changes in the data platform. We've seen Microsoft just like really shift into like Azure, and it's just just how much market
you're right, because
is
things have
coming
changed
out.
from things like SQL Grillen and SQL Relay is now Data Relay and Data Grillen because everything is now
And people
shifting.
keep telling me to like rethink the group by name, and I'm like, but I love it. I love it so much.
No, that's got some life to it. Don't change it. Right?
I know, I love it. It was it has a history, and I don't plan to. But just curious about, you moved from SQL Grillen to Data Grillen. How have you seen for 8KB? Sorry, you're not really part of this conversation. Just
I think we are actually,
it's okay. You guys carry on. It's fine.
Okay.
We're just
how do you
relay can chip in as
reconcile
well if you want.
content? How do you decide what tracks to have? Do you have like, we're like, do we have a BI track? Do we focus on development? Do we only do DBA? How do we kind of put guardrails around what people
so
are?
The cool thing in this is Data Grillen is two people who run it, right? It's Ben Weissman and me, and it's a benign dictatorship. So we just do what the hell we want to do. So like session selection, we try and do things a little bit different to everybody else just because we're contrarian, right? I'm an English guy who lives in Germany, which is already immediately an oxymoron somehow. So we do things like, okay, we're going to get the submissions and we're going to do the selection inside 24 hours of close of call for speakers. Why? Because we can, and because nobody else can. Ha! So that's the reason behind us doing things like this, right? Nobody else does a session track just for newcomers, so we're going to do it. Ha! So in terms of choosing the tracks that we do or changing from SQL Grillen to Data Grillen, it's just like because we can. Right? What feels right, let's try it. If it doesn't work, we'll change it. And who's going to tell us that it's wrong or shout at us? I don't care. It's fine. It's just
I think you missed my question because I said,
Probably,
how
on
is the
purpose.
content in the data platform industry changing? You're like, I'll do what I want.
but that's my answer.
Okay.
So I actually think us from 8KB could answer this
flying
question.
in the face of change.
All right.
No, just in that since it's such a broad thing now, there's so many different topics you could potentially cover in a conference that us focusing just on internals makes everything for us a lot easier. And to be completely honest, we were trying to organize something that'd be really easy for us.
But we did have a mandate of we're going to put on a conference with the least amount of effort possible.
Yes. But I think what all these online conferences have possibly done is change things so that in the future you will have a lot more focused events on specific topics, and maybe less, just general events. I don't know if that exactly answers the question, but I feel like it's so big that it's gonna force people to focus on specific areas a little bit more than maybe they were used to in the past.
Yeah, it is. Sorry, it is pretty diverse, right? I mean, on the Weekender, you kind of and in SQL Saturdays, you tend to kind of group it into the whole Azure Power Platform and kind of stroke on-premise, which we know is also in Azure, but let's talk about the on-premise side, right? So there is that kind of division that you try to loosely build events around. But the minute you do that, you kind of have to sign up to the fact that you're going to have a lot of tracks. I guess that's the first thing. If you decide to do a 2-track event, then you're going to have to focus in on something. Focus in on the Power bit, focus in on the SQL Server bit, focus focusing on the Azure part of it, and you'll run a great event on the back of that one. I think now if you want to try to be kind of representative across all those 3 areas, you just got to add on the tracks, which then throws up the question of, will I get enough people coming in to each one of those tracks to merit each speaker saying giving up an hour of their time on a Saturday or whenever it is, to kind of go, yeah, I feel good the fact that I did my talk and 40 people were there. I don't feel cheated, you know, whereas, you know, you don't want to be doing something where there's 2 people inside in a virtual room, you know, that's not good. And it's nice then to add in the others. We had a session on quantum computing this year, all right? You know, I just saw that one coming in. I must say that was one of those ones. I'm picking that. I don't care.
Thank
I
you,
want
yes,
the quantum
yep.
computing.
Deal.
Yeah, deal. I want the quantum session in there because that's just an interesting thing to be talking about in there out to people. So, I mean, who says you have to even stick directly within the platform? Just, I think William's kind of right and do it. We're organizing something on our backs. Kind of do what feels right for you to do as well, you know? And if it feels right to specialize, great. If it feels right to generalize, great. Just run with it then, to be honest, you know? And again, maybe one of the advantages of, if you don't have a sponsor, you don't have to worry about the other side of it, you know?
Well, and that's probably why it's so important for group buy to not just be me and it's like Daniel and Eugene and Aaron Nelson, because I'm just like, I don't know. What do you guys want to have a conference on this time? You tell me what's cool, and I'll make it happen. I don't know.
That's why 8KB isn't just me, because otherwise we just have 5 sessions on different things you could do in Kubernetes. You know,
no, it would all be Raspberry Pi related.
Yeah.
Right.
A Raspberry Pi conference would go down very well.
Right. It's true.
It's true. There has to be one.
There must be. I'm going to Google that Raspberry Pi conference. Let's find out.
We're about to get some free advertising.
I love the way you're all waiting for the response.
Yeah, actually, no, but
Google
us.
Okay. There does not seem.
Frosty's getting his submission ready.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
Well.
Register the domain name Raspberry Conf, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's Raspberry Jam. Okay, Raspberry Jam. That sounds good.
Oh, different market. Right?
One thing I think really surprised us with setting up our conference was the response from the community that we had. So we thought we'd get, we were happy if we got 10 submissions for the conference. We ended up getting over 70. And then I think we asked for moderators, and I think we've got 10 moderators with the space of 15 minutes of asking online. The response back was just unbelievable. So there's a lot of people sitting there going, must do things.
Well, there's a lot of MVPs who need to put in their community hours too. They're like, crap, no SQL Saturdays this year.
But you sometimes find there's a bigger response.
Sorry, Kevin?
I was going to say, given the timing of it all, that was early on. That was when everything around us was getting canceled. Oh, sorry, that SQL Saturday has been postponed. That one's been canceled. This one's been postponed. SQL Bits got moved to October. At that point, there's just this big gap in everyone's calendars. So also, it was before Zoom fatigue was a term that people had ever heard of. I think that plays a role.
Yeah, oh no, absolutely. It was it was around the March, April, May time, wasn't it? Where it was just sort of like everything's gone, and people were sort of sitting around going, because you folks like me, I've spent the last 2 years, every other weekend I've been up in Dublin. I never thought I'd miss Dublin Airport. It's really weird.
Miss any airport, like any airport.
It's one of those things that's a love-hate relationship.
8KB.
Maybe not Charlotte. I'll never miss the Charlotte airport.
Well, AKB, Mark has been talking about. Oh, sorry.
Concourse D, they did actually finish repairs on Concourse D before everything got shut down. Concourse B, I think, had gotten finished, and they started on another one when all the craziness happened.
So I'm gonna throw a maybe potentially controversial question, but none of us, our events, made anyone pre-record, and then a lot of other events made folks pre-record. What it was never even dawned on us to have folks pre-record. Like, did that ever cross your mind for your events, or was it just like, we're going to do these live because We want to do them
Live.
live and have interaction.
Live.
Live.
Yeah, live interaction.
However,
So
in pre-recording's defense, having done
Mhm.
sequel bits and pre-recorded for sequel bits, I really liked it as a speaker. You're right, because it was
Yeah.
really cool to kind of go on, have my session playing, and I kind of, the way I created it was, geez, it felt like there was two Marks in the room. There was one Mark doing the talking, and the other Mark was on the chat talking to people, and that was, I really liked that. I never even thought of that beforehand. So from a speaker point of view, I thought it was great, but it is a bit of work.
the big thing that the whole controversy around who was pre-recording and who was live speaking was the fact that events made decisions to pre-record on a very short notice.
Yes.
Correct.
100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
Anthony,
we all
you
probably.
record for plural sites, so you know what it takes to have like an error-free recording, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
everybody who was involved in an event which then said, hey, record this for us, please. Every single one of them was of the same mental attitude to say, I want to deliver a plural site quality recording, which, while laudable, is insane.
Yeah.
Because I'm guessing you spend weeks preparing, building, and recording even maybe a 4-hour like video or something. Maybe I'm wrong.
If I have
don't
to
know.
do a 2-hour course, if I do it full time,
Mhm.
is 5 weeks from
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
outline to produced video.
So
I mean, even when
anybody being told to do a 60 or 75-minute recording for some event and being told you've got 4 weeks to turn around on this, oh, by the way, you're not being paid, or you get a ticket to attend the event or something like that, is absolute insanity. And fair enough, it's the same as going live and presenting that event, but it's not, because live you don't go for that perfection. You just go for I am going to stand on a stage and I'm going to talk for 70 minutes around the topic. If I trip over my words, it doesn't matter. If I answer a question, it's okay. If I think for a second, it's okay. People seem to have that mental state of it has to be perfect. I have only done one recorded session this year. It was for Data Platform Summit, and I did a one take because I said no. I made myself not stop and re-record and re-record. I'm speaking to an audience. The audience is just a camera, which I really hate, which is why I'm not doing any more events. But for me, at least, it felt more authentic. I was, just like Mark said, I was in the room with my recording and was answering audience questions. And I was listening to myself maybe stumble or stop to think about something or whatever. And it felt like a real live presentation would. How I would have done it on stage. I would have done the same thing, made mistakes or whatever. That's a major thing that people need to at least accept and process in their minds.
Yeah.
That comes with experience, though, I think.
Oh,
William.
for sure.
Because I must admit, I'd finished recording my first Pluralsight course, and I was sitting there having a beer, and I got the email from SQL Bit saying, "Hey, by the way, your session is going to be recorded." And I did not react well to that email. Just after coming back of recording all that. But I think that it comes with experience. Like if you can sit there and just, I find if I can get through the first 5 minutes of recording without making a mistake, I can knock it out.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
It'll take me 20 attempts to get through those first 5 minutes, though.
Oh yeah. No,
Could you give people the option? Could you just say,
well,
if
that's
you
the
want
problem,
to pre-record,
because
go ahead?
especially a large event. Imagine it's, let's say, it's a 5-track 2-day event. That's how many speakers? 60 more. It's a technical challenge to do live streaming of 5 sessions simultaneously. Not everybody has the bandwidth.
This brings us back down to what we were saying earlier. Is would then the focus be on smaller events and more of them instead of one gigantic event, purely because of the logistics of doing things of those online types of stuff?
Oh, I agree. I mean, the events we've run so far, all of our events have been relatively small, a couple of tracks maybe, and it's been cost-wise really low, but also organization-wise quite simple. And for that reason alone, I would not want to do more than 2 tracks as a live online event, right? I wouldn't do recording because I don't like that. I just don't.
Yeah.
It's just not my thing.
So the thing is, I find funny there though, because with Weekender we ran 6 tracks, all right, live,
Right.
and
Okay.
to me, it's far. I much prefer the idea of running 6 live events with no pre-recording than turning around and trying to pre-record and organize 6 tracks, getting all the pre-recording in there, lining it up, and whatever that entails in there, you know.
I think there, it's the difference between a paid and a free event. If
Fair
you're
enough, yeah.
paying, let's say you're paying $500 to attend a 2-day online event, you have an expectation of quality. And if all of a sudden you get the audio that
Look, and that's fair enough.
That's not cool. So that's why the recording is a requirement. So they can at least, they have the quality and they can change bit rates and whatnot on the fly and make sure that you at least have access to the stuff, right?
No, absolutely. In a paid for, I think it's fine, but it's got to be upfront. You have to know upfront. And I saw an interesting chat on Twitter sometime, and a person was debating. It might have been Catherine, but anyway, it was debating the difference between live recorded versus pre-recorded. All right, and like the whole connotation of pre-recorded kind of implies maybe a certain level of polish going on there.
Exactly
whereas
the point
live recorded is, okay, look, I'm doing this as within reason, 1 take.
Yeah.
You know, 10 starts, 1 take, that type of idea in there. And but I think what I've noticed with the speakers is, no offense, but half the speakers out there seem to have a touch of OCD. Okay, where they're kind of going, I think
it's almost like there's a personality trait throughout the whole speaker community. Yeah.
And that does not help if you have that OCD tendency. I do not have it, thank God. But like, if you have that in there, that's got to be rough then, because you're hearing your voice and you're seeing the mistakes and you're kind of going, oh my God, no, I got to do it again. And that's tough.
You know what you're talking about, and please don't ask me how many lights I have on in my room right now.
That's the thing. I think people have come across. They've seen people like Anthony and Kevin and Brent do their streaming presentations, and they're assuming that's the quality you've got to get to.
Yeah, but those guys are getting paid.
People don't realize that. They try and do it on a budget. You know, I've only just got a separate microphone for my headset this week, and you can see my backdrop is, you know, this is what I have.
It's an awesome backdrop.
Yeah. But it's just because I can't afford to go and buy a full streaming rig and a separate Mac to do all the Premiere stuff.
Nor do you need it.
If you're going to run an online conference,
no, you don't need it. But
and you're going to have people pay to attend that conference, you need to pay your speakers. The fact that they made speakers spend hours recording this stuff and didn't give them any of the revenue they brought in from the conference was frankly, and then they were going to make money off I know we promised we wouldn't pass bash, but I'm just, it's so wrong. Like if you're going to pay for group buy, if I charge you $50 to show up to group buy, right? At least some of that money should go to the speakers, like SQL tip jar, you know, at least, right?
Someone start the hashtag.
I hate that there's nothing that is paid in this community.
To bring both your points together, Stuart and Blythe, there's another community that I'm affiliated with that's figuring out their next conference. And it's a big in-person paid conference, but they're going online because they have to. And generally they give an honorarium, I think is what they call it, to the speakers for the live sessions. But they also at the same time try to cultivate new speakers. And so in that sense, if you need a stipend for a mic rig so that they can meet the recording quality, that group has decided that that's a priority to them. And so that can help have accessibility to folks for speaking that might not have that in other scenarios. And I read that, I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That goes back to the early talk about sponsorship. You know, someone wants to step up and sponsor and say, we have this batch of microphones in the States and the US, ship them out, they get shipped back after the conference.
So that would be a fantastic thing for any potential sponsors listening to this. Don't sponsor with money, sponsor with equipment or access to a recording studio or something like that.
Yes, Nintendo, if you're listening, please send us free stuff.
So
on the topic, actually, earlier this year, remember there was a huge shortage of webcams.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes, yeah, remember that.
Like you couldn't really get one. So yeah, if someone had a bunch of them and they were sponsoring with webcams, that would have been extremely valuable.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
Okay.
can just have a broadcast in a box that you mail out. Someone uses it, mails it back.
So
Yep.
It
we're
costs- maybe
talking
costs
about
some
equipment and
postage.
things like that. This year, I don't go on Pluralsight to
Uh-oh.
this link here, Mark. Thank you for my helm course. I learned a whole bunch of stuff, but I bought a whole bunch of new equipment. I got a ring light up there. I got a big mic here. The one thing I had, and Mark and Nancy are probably sick of hearing about me,
The
was
one thing you did learn was to talk into the right side.
right side of the mic. Yes, yes. All right, it's not my fault. I thought the speaker was at the top of the mic, not on the side. But
You gotta get it, okay.
reverb. I had to work. I realized I've got 12 foot high ceilings here and wooden floors and all this. So when I was recording for Pluralsight, when I've done other events and things like that, it's a really echoey sound. That's why I'm on my headset now. So I ended up having to go to my local home base, buy a roll of duct tape and some the sewage pipes that I basically built a hut over my workstation here, draped a blanket over the top at, and I recorded the entire Pluralsight course under
Wow.
there to get rid of in July. Which I know it's in Dublin, but still it's under a it's basically in a tent in my living room.
Photos that are available
And-
on Twitter, should you want to find them.
Yes. I posted a photo of it on Twitter. Yeah, absolutely.
I saw
Going,
that.
right,
Yeah.
I've spent like a month underneath this thing recording my own voice. Yeah. Things like
it's-
that. When people are recording for the first time, I didn't even consider reverb would have been an issue when I started recording stuff like that. And all of a sudden you get into, I think the amount of times I was speaking into the mic with Anthony and Mark, and they're going, no, dude, no, that's not working. I was like,
Still
okay, what if I
there.
put it, because I had a cardboard box wrapped in tea towels, I put the mic in, and I was like, no, that's not working as well.
So I've
there's
been
all those different
recording.
So
things
pay
to
your
consider.
speakers.
Yeah.
Pay your speakers.
I've been recording professionally for almost 5 years now, and when I have to, this is for like any new upcoming speakers. Some parts get easier. You get faster producing video, but whatever gets old is how hard it actually is. It's hard, and it will always be hard for me, even. And there's also even day by day. Like some days you got it, and some days you don't, and it's just hard to get the words out. And so if you're thinking about speaking in public and you have to pre-record, don't let that be a barrier. Just get out there, try it. If it stinks, it's okay. Just try it, and eventually it'll work out. I think. I mean, if y'all had a similar experience.
Pre-recording your
Yeah.
first session ever is going to be rough, though. I couldn't
Yeah.
imagine doing that.
Yeah.
My first ever speaking session was a 10-minute lightning talk at the sequel Dublin UG, and I stood there, and went, and then went, thank you very much, and walked off, and that's all I remember of it.
Yeah, my bit session. I had two. The first one took me a day and a half to record. That 60-minute session. It's totally different, even than like recording a course. It's just two different animals, and so the way that kind of like what you did, William, I did a hybrid technique of I did one slide at a time. If that was good, cool. Then I moved to the next one. If I totally
Yeah.
boned it up, then I just repeat that slide.
Mhm.
And that technique was what actually got me through, because I tried to just riff it off all at once in the beginning. No. That did not work.
I think my advantage is I have the ability to be able to talk bullshit for about 65 minutes on almost any topic and land
your
it on
upper
about
limit.
65 minutes. So it just seems to work for me.
Okay, so we're coming to, we're over an hour now, so let's end this on a happy note, shall we? Instead of banging on about sponsors.
Sponsors are great.
what's
We
the
love
one-
them.
We love sponsors.
We all love sponsors. What is the one thing that's happened in the daily community this year, maybe specifically with your events or in general, that's made you smile?
Complete
Oh,
silence.
come
No one's
on.
smiling.
I'll start with
It's not been a
EightKB.
good year.
Tough year.
It's been
Right.
so let's
I've
wow.
won. All right.
Go on.
This I was delighted with. One of the speakers at Data Weekender, and I think she was a new star as a data speaker too. So sorry if I'm going to steal your thunder. Is the New Zealand girl who's 13 doing
Yes.
online talks. That is awesome. All right, that's just
Cool.
awesome that you have a person of that age with that kind of level of mentoring from her mother. I think her mother is an MVP, and
Yep.
that level of mentoring and that level of engagement in there and the confidence delivering in there and seeing a building, that I was chuffed. I was delighted, you know, and
Yep.
long may she continue and see more and inspire others.
It's amazing.
Yep, completely agree. I can't add to that.
Well, that shut you all up.
Nobody
All
else
right,
had
I'll throw
anything
one-
that made
I'll-
them smile.
I was gonna say, I'll throw one out there. For me, it's been this. Like, we figured out a way, right? We figured out a way to still hang out with each other, talk to each other, reach out to our communities, and we all worked really hard to make that happen. You know, obviously, we're all tired of Zoom and sitting in our home offices, but we did the best that we could given the parameters that we had, and survived. In I think in a good way, right? Because I have a couple of happy hours. I'm sure we all have a couple of happy hours with our friends at some point in the week, and being able to continue to do that, that's been like, that's what gets me through the weeks of not leaving my house, right?
Mhm.
Thank you, everybody.
It's making me smile now that Andrew seems to have dropped off.
I know.
Right.
It's like, oh, we're talking about smiling.
Oh, he's
Wow.
back.
Right.
I'm back. I'm back. Well,
Oh,
why
there
are we
he
waiting?
is.
For...
We've all been sitting here in silence ever since you
Yeah, he's
dropped
froze.
off.
The best thing about the SQL Server community this year
That made you smile.
that
Yeah.
made me smile, Steph joining the past board was amazing. I'm a huge fan of Steph Locke, and I got to do she asked me to do the board Q&A during the past summit, because past didn't do one. And so getting to do that was a real pleasure, even though I got the hashtags mixed up and it was crazy. I don't know. I think that she's going to do great things for our community, and whether it's with past or not, it was really cool to work with her. That was a huge that was like a really fun day for me. That was
Yeah,
nice.
that provided a lot of value and a lot of insight into what was going on. So thank you for coordinating that. That's super.
Okay. I think
It's just
that's
been
us.
good to see the community pulling
Nope.
together. There's been quite a
Yeah.
bit of community pulling together without being organised. You know, people
Mhm.
haven't been clashing events. There's been a lot of people taking time out to make sure people are happy and okay.
Yeah.
You know, you see a lot on Twitter. If someone's not having a good day, there's a lot of people around to help out.
Yeah.
It's just been nice to see that sort of actual sort of community feel, rather than just being an excuse to go to a conference and have fun.
Totally.
Yeah. Weird how just a general group of people act as a community instead of requiring some central management
Mhm.
HQ.
Crazy,
Hashtag
right?
SQL family, I think, is the one to use.
Oh.
Super subtle,
we-
William.
Yeah, we did good. We did good, guys. We did good. We kept it clean. We kept it clean.
All right.
Even with
Okay.
William drinking, there were minimum punches all
Right.
thrown. Yeah.
Have we actually done the clap and finish, or are we?
No, not
still
yet.
going?
No, not
No,
yet.
No, we're still
We
going.
haven't done it. We're
We're-
still
Thanks for
going.
No, we're
listening to
still
the
recording.
podcast.
No, that seems like we're wrapping up. Now I have to go and turn my blinking heating off. I'm sitting next to a radiator here, and all I'm doing is melting.
I do have a call like in 2 minutes, so
All right.
Okay.
Okay, so no, we can absolutely. I think that's. Thank you everyone for joining us. It's been a really great discussion, and to everyone listening, have a great Christmas and a happy New Year.
thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks for having us.